And we are live. We are up and running. So, multiple things going on at once. That is working there. Good.
Yep.
So, g'day everyone. It's been a pretty heavy day. We got started, Danny and I got started early this morning, and we headed out around 4:10, and we...
AM.
4 a.m. 0400. And we got to have a good crack with the PARD utilising its night vision capability, because it was early enough and dark enough that we actually had to use that, because the camels were there. They were only 6 k's from home, and we got them this time. Now, it's effectively the middle of a heat wave that we've got here in Western Australia and outback of Western Australia. It's currently 44 degrees, and with this increased heat we have been seeing a lot more camels. So it's not just us that are coming across a lot of camels, it's our neighbours as well, our neighbours to the north. And on the weekend, so yesterday, we had the day off, and Saturday, as you'd know, I was shooting camels. But Brendan and Jesse came down from Carnegie, and they said that Jonah had dropped 135 camels on Friday when Danny and I dropped 7. So they're copying them, and then up at Glen Isle Station, they are also getting a lot of camels as well. So it is widespread. It is the entire eastern interface of the pastoral zone that is getting camels. So it is okay. For some reason that audio is not coming through. Should I turn that up? Wind my gain up. Alright, so Simon, you said that the audio wasn't working that well. Please give me a thumbs up if it has come good now, because I don't have any audio feedback on it. Alright, I can wind that back all the way up to full noise. Okay, yep, everyone's now got us back again. So the camel infestation has really been coming up to us, and we've got this heat wave, and one of the things that we've got happening here in West Australia is we've actually got a cyclone moving in, and that's likely to bring a reasonable amount of rain to our area. So you might be sort of wondering why, if we're going to be getting a whole load of rain in the next week or two, why you would worry about taking out the camels. But it's sort of to make sure that we don't have more of a problem later on, because out here, us in the eastern interface, we get very little support from government or even the regional biosecurity organisations in terms of support for the feral control. And so that's like ammunition and even things like aerial shoots, which they get a lot of down to the southern areas. And recently there was a shoot that was conducted by a private organisation that used government contractors out to our east, and they took out a few thousand camels, but that was for the protection of wild sandalwood that they were going to pull and use for perfume anyway. So it's important for us to make sure that we take out the camels at the moment, to make sure that we don't have another camel problem in a few months, because we've got this nice big lake in the middle of our station, which grows quite good feed, and we will have camels coming in anyway because they're already in the region and they're going to start taking up all of that valuable feed. So some camels will spread out, but a lot more are going to be coming in and going to the nice sweet fresh feed on the salt country. We have been shooting an enormous amount of young camels. Like, it's somewhere around 40 odd percent young camels that we've been taking out. And while we're talking about all of this, a good thing to sort of also say thank you to is all of our members. We've got 20 members now who get early access to all of our videos. And then also thank you very much to some of our ongoing supporters like Australian Sporting Agencies, Adam, and of course Duncan's been there for a long time, but it's also great to see Mike and Sam are online now as well. We're going to have more camels coming into here. So today Danny and I shot, we actually have the tally, 182 today. And we've got to go back and check, sorry, that's on the wrong side. We need to go through the backlog and reconfirm our tally, but we've got 333 for this year, and for January and December we're at 498.
Roughly.
So it's not a small amount that we've been taking out.
So which leads into Ron, our numbers up for this time of the year?
The numbers that we have been shooting kind of is typical. Usually we'd be seeing more. April is when we would generally have like our good season, but that's when you can actually use the
meat.
Yeah, use the meat. Now is just purely a killing season. There's just nothing you can do with it. It is shocking material to deal with. Even the meat is not nice to eat. Green Caps Lock has said, do you watch Edge of the Outback? He's been using his semi-auto. Yeah, in different states, we've got different laws and regulations, and here in Western Australia, it's been deemed that there's no legitimate need for a semi-automatic for private use. And yeah, here in WA, no private operators are allowed to have Category D firearms, because they say that it is a threat to public safety for us to have access to those tools, which is because the people who are involved in making those decisions have no real world experience. Yeah, so that's kind of that little bit on firearms and how frustrating it is that we aren't allowed to use semi-autos, because having had fairly reasonable experience with semi-automatic firearms, I know that I can keep rounds on target, even moving targets so well that you hardly notice that you're shooting. Yeah, and now using the NPR, which is an absolutely brilliant platform, because everyone seems to be against the use of a pump action. The pump action is really, really good, and there's currently a campaign against them, and people are trying to ban them here in Australia because they look scary, which is just really frustrating for people like myself and the feral vertebrate control guys up in Queensland, because they're such a useful tool, and we don't need to jump through hoops to get access to them. And effectively, they're just trying to make sure that, it's just government contracts each time and every time, because here in West Australia, the private operators, which guys like myself and then some of our professional shooters, are only allowed to use Category B firearms, because our Category C firearms we aren't allowed to use on any other property, and that's under our primary producer license. Much like my the handguns, that I'm not allowed to use my revolver for finishing off camels. I actually can only use that for if they're inside the yards. So technically on the last couple of days I could have used my revolver, but that'd be pushing the limit a little bit. And Jamil's asked, is shooting out of a chopper viable? Yeah, we've used the chopper a number of times, and it's just really for us the right time, and having the gear ready to go and having the good operators.
No, Dustin, no.
And Dustin, no, we can't actually get the same Cat Cs, because over here we're limited on appearance. So we've got a couple of Cat Cs, so we've got semi-auto 12s, pump 12s, and a semi-auto 22 Magnum. But they have to be non-tactical. You're not allowed to have anything with tactical in the actual description of the firearm here in Western Australia. And g'day Esther, it's good to see you.
George is meant to be on holiday.
Yeah, so pest control in West Australia, we are not allowed category Ds at all. So it's just outright. No one who is not a government agency is allowed a category D. There's people who seem to think, oh, you've just got to fill out the paperwork. No, it is just categorically a no. And we have tried and tried before. We purchased a semi-automatic rifle. We had a good L1A1, and we got that into WA through a Cat D dealer, and then we went to actually apply for the license, and we got told that no, the application forms don't actually exist. And we said, well, that's not legally allowed. And then we got the forms, filled out the application, put it in, and then just got told, nah, you're not allowed it. It's just a hard no, which was great fun. The CZ515, which is a lever release 22 Magnum, we've got the 512, but we're not allowed to have that in the different chassis, so we have to have a wooden stock on it. For us in WA, we're allowed our handguns, so I'm only allowed a revolver as my primary producer one, and I'm not actually legally allowed to use that at the pistol club, where at the pistol club we're allowed semi-automatic, self-loading pistols, which sort of seems a little bit confusing, because I like and I'm a little bit more proficient with a semi-auto because you can just drop a mag out. Virgil asking, wild horses a problem in your area? They were a problem until Danny and I were on our way home this afternoon, and we came across a small group, and now the small group is no more.
Yeah, but talk about the territorial, so they don't get
and so the horses are territorial, and so they don't come in constant influxes. We can manage them, and they learn how to use the self-mustering guards as well, so we can just trap them, and then we can just take them out with that aforementioned 22 Magnum. And Heine Yonka, are we allowed suppressed rifles in Western Australia? No, we are not allowed to have suppressors in Western Australia because they are a threat to public safety. And g'day Graham, thank you for joining us today. We aren't allowed the suppressors, and there's a reform going on in Western Australia for firearms, and there was a board created called the Firearms Advisory Board, and it was using a bunch of primary producer representative groups, and I'd put to them that we need to be able to have access to at least suppressors to be able to do feral animal control very efficiently. And unfortunately, there's this impression that they won't increase your efficiency at all, because they will only stop spooking one or two animals rather than the whole group. And so yeah, it's a little annoying because we know that a suppressor would help us, particularly if we're doing stuff at night with thermals or night vision gear. And there's even a push to try and ban those here because of some weird idea that they make you more dangerous. Kelsey's asked, is the poor meat quality due to the lack of water? And yes, yeah, to an extent it is, because the animals are having to use their reserve of fat to keep themselves surviving. So any animal that's under that sort of stress is struggling. And the camels that we shot down at Brumby on Friday, they were pretty close to perishing. Like the one of them actually had his eyes sucked. And then today we had a couple that were stuck in the salt lake that were trying to dig for water.
Cost per shot.
The cost per shot, you just went through the invoice, didn't you?
No, I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
It's a while ago.
So we buy our 308 ammo in bulk, and we get it for somewhere around $1.40 a shot. Yeah. Now Craig has asked, how do camels react at night? Do they cluster up more? I've done a bit of night shooting on camels, and under a spotlight, it is actually kind of ridiculous because they get dazzled by the light and they will walk around in a circle. They'll just walk around in a circle, and we just kept on shooting them. No suppressors, nothing. And yeah, but this morning with the night vision scope, so the PARD DS35 70 LRF, I was shooting towards the sunrise, so it hasn't got the crispest shot, but it was so much better than trying to do twilight shooting. In fact, I picked up the MPR with the really good Scout, LVPO optic, and I only put 4 shots or 5 shots through it before switching back to the other optic. Why don't you stand for state government with these issues as a platform? I actually have have run for it before, as for being a local member, but yeah, I wasn't successful because for some unknown reason, the shooting community in West Australia isn't always the most supportive, and there's a lot of infighting. David asking, do you let guys come up there and give you a hand with the problem? Yet we have select teams of guys that come up on a regular basis, and they take out a number of camels, and they generally use it for meat as well. In summer, it's not very pleasant, and so our accommodation is not really great for anyone visiting during that and trying to get some cold sleep at night and go out during the day shooting. Robert Spinner asking, using a 5.56. Yeah, 5.56 is pretty effective on the camels, but we're not supposed to use them on camels because the minimum caliber by the state or even federal standard operating procedures say that we have to use a 308 on them. The 5.56 is good on camels out to about 200 rounds, especially if you're running hot loads, and that's where something that would be great to try out, and we have been offered to try out the Eureka Stockade, the lever release 223, but the state, like the firearms licensing here in West Australia, is making it difficult to be able to get that over here to start trying it out up here. But that'd be a great rifle to use because that's almost somewhere in the middle ground of the Speedline, which we've used and we're going to be doing a review on later, and the MPR, which has got a good form. William's asking if we've applied for a Cat C or D. Yes, have a Cat C. Tried to get a Cat D, and in West Australia, no private operators are allowed Cat Ds at all. So yeah. Have I barbecue slow roasted camel before? Yes, I have. I've even made pulled camel burgers before, and
Pretty
it's
much
quite
any way you can prepare it, we have.
yeah.
We've done biltong.
Yeah,
They're not going to be able to hear me.
well, we've done biltong, classic chili,
Sausages,
yeah, sausages, roasts,
mince.
minced it up into lasagnas, spag bogs, anything. Yeah, you can use a 6.5 Creedmoor on the camels. They do kick a little bit less, but again, standard operating procedures say we're not allowed to use anything under the 30 cal.
Have we had problems with people coming on the property and shooting or taking cattle?
Now, Eric's asked, have you had any issues with idiots coming onto your property shooting the camels or taking your cattle? Yes, we have. We've had a number of times where we've had people coming onto the place thinking that they can come shooting. Early on the channel, we did a little video asking about respecting the property, and that fired up a whole load of people who started going into a bit of a sovereign citizen. I pay taxes, you have a crown lease, it's my land too, I'm allowed to go there and do what I want. So yeah, we do often run into people who seem to think that a pastoral lease, which is privately owned, they're allowed to traverse and shoot, camp, and do whatever they want, which is really, really frustrating. Now, any issues with the wild dogs? We have a pretty serious campaign that we work on with the wild dogs, and we do some strategic baiting and also opportunistic shooting. Now, Dustin's asked, saying you need to be a commercial operator for Cat D. Not in WA, it doesn't work. I'm a registered shooter under a commercial license as a pest controller, also as a trainer for aerial platform shooting, and we are still not allowed Category Ds in Western Australia. So we're part of a registered training organisation for aerial platform control of feral animals, and we aren't allowed to do it in Western Australia. We're allowed to do it in Victoria, and we're allowed to do it in the Territory, but we aren't allowed to do it in Western Australia. So it is really, really frustrating, particularly when you get asked to train the government shooters for Western Australia. And we told them, no, we won't unless we have the fair and equal rules that would allow us to do it. But then we're a threat to them because we can do it for less. Yep, we have looked at the 300 blackout, but you can always just load your throwaway lighter and get the same effect. So I've looked at the 300 blackout and I got a throwaway years and years ago. Does the feral control impose a significant distraction to your operating week? Of course it does. And it's not so much just popping them. Danny and I spent almost 2 hours today dragging bodies out of yards because they were there and annoying us. Also, that prevents some of the cattle getting in there. Now, the other cost is the amount of our cattle that we lose because of the camels. Because the camel will hold the cattle out of the yards, but also we have our self-mustering yards set all year round to prevent so many camels getting access to our water so that we can actually have our cattle roaming in and out. Now, sometimes there are cattle that aren't fully trained to the water points and they won't go into the yards and we lose them. We've decided that it is an acceptable loss for those few cattle that we lose a year at a water point to make sure that we have the whole herd surviving because they have access to the water by preventing the camels from having free rein on the water point. Now, another thing Danny and I did today was we had to fix up a tank where the pipe had been pulled out by camels. And yeah, we only got 17 of the camels that were there because they had had a drink and they were able to get moving quick.
Any NRM organisations that we collaborate with or assist with in the effective management? Mike, Larry. There.
Natural resource management groups, no. Generally, they're just trying to make money for themselves. And so it just ends up costing us. Like, even if we do a government-supported shoot here, we have to provide the fuel, accommodation, and other services for free, for the right to have them come and operate their air culls.
Any interesting geology finds?
With the geology, I reckon I've found kimberlite piles, but it is known up here that we do have diamonds, but just diamonds are worth nothing anymore. So, yeah. Yeah, that's I'm not a geologist. Ant and I did have a lot of fun joking about it every now and then as we went around the place having a look at the stones and everything. Again, the dream rifle. Oh, sorry. How much can a grown camel drink? They will drink 200 litres a day, easily. And what the camels can do, which cattle can't do, is they can come in, gorge themselves on water, and not drown themselves. And they will sit down, then they'll come back and have another drink, and they will keep doing that until they are up and ready to go. Then they'll move on. The dream rifle, if I could have any of them, I would probably, I don't know, I like the AR platform. They are nice and easy to work with, they're light enough, so probably a Heckler & Co 417 would be a great rifle for the work we do, especially with a dirty great suppressor on it. But because we wouldn't be allowed that here in Australia, I'd probably take the wedge tail semi-automatic that they make. So they make a WT-25, which is a nice Australian made AR. Would I run a 300 Win Mag? I have got a 300 Win Mag. I've got a custom built Australian precision rifle, which is based off the Remington 700 action, and it is really nice. It's great for long range shots, but it's not great for a lot of repeated shots because it's a long action. And one of the blokes came up, one of our Kiwi lads, he came up and he used a 300 Win Mag, and he got tired of it very quickly just because of the recoil. The water for the homestead, we use bore water, and then we use a reverse osmosis system here. And Eric, I saw the email you sent through on the hydro panels. They'd be interesting to try. Nico talking about the 417. Yeah, it is a bit frustrating with the finicky parts. The reliability of the rifle's great, but the fact that you have to get everything through them is annoying. So then you've got something like the Valmet Hunter, which is effectively a AK.
Funnily enough, Jimmy.
Jimmy asking about the Mahindra. We did joke about it, and we reached out to Mahindra to see if they would put one of their vehicles to the test, but apparently, we're too remote for them to even support the idea of us having a go of one, because they didn't think that they'd be able to supply parts because they were worried about it looking bad. Harrison asking about using a semi-auto shotgun with slugs. You can. I've used slugs on camels before. Here in West Australia, it's really difficult to get our semi-auto shotguns. at times, and I was trying to get myself a Mossberg with a rifled barrel, and I wanted to run a detachable box magazine on it because I do like a mag system, but I waited 18 months and then they cancelled the order. Do our neighbours participate in controlling the camels? Yes, they do. They do it, but they aren't always supported the most. We take it and we do it a bit of as a passion as well, because we know that it's one of the biggest impacts we can have on the land management is taking out the feral animals. And have we thought of engaging a private contractor to do aerial shooting? Again, I'm qualified to do the air shooting, so we use a chopper contractor in for doing that, but sometimes it's just not economic to do so. Rob asking about the
Can you explain what you actually do with the cattle?
with our mustering videos. Yep, we'll try to do more detail on any of our next videos of mustering.
There is a lot of detail, just in different.
Yeah, it is spread out across a lot of our different videos. Dustin's asked, are lever actions considered as semi-auto here? No, they're not. Also, I get quite tired of using a lever, but we do have a lever action here, and that is the lever release Vernie Caron speedline, and that's in 308. Danny today was using the Enfield, and he actually preferred the Enfield over the speedline, even with the difficulties we do have with feed, because we have the larger magazines for the Enfield action. So that's the M14 magazines. Do we get feral pigs in WA? Yes, we do, but not out where we are. Now, it is actually a massive problem for the guys over on the coast, and particularly over towards Geraldton and Northampton. Sorry, I will get that all the way over there. So Geraldton and Northampton, this region here, and the Chapman Valley, we have a lot of pigs, and the guys there, so the farmers there, were trying to get themselves semi-automatic rifles. So they wanted to get like the WT-15, which is a 223 semi-automatic, for controlling the pigs, particularly when we started looking at swine fever, to help control the wild population. And again, the state government wouldn't support them at all, but then said, oh, but you can contract us to do it. And they cost a hell of a lot more than what private operators can do it for. So how many square kilometres do you need per head of cattle? We generally give them 100 hectares per animal. Yeah, about 100 hectares each. And do we track any of our cattle via GPS tags? We have had a look before at them, and we have looked at things like Sarah's tags. And I had considered the movement tags, which operate off a low RAR network, which we have coincidentally one ourselves. But I just haven't followed that up any further. Now, the Waters Rifleman 10-shot mags for the Vernie Caron. Yeah, we've got a couple of the 10 shots, but they are unfortunately the 300 Win Mag ones, and so they feed horribly. And I'm just, when I was trying to talk to the manufacturers, they were really quite rude. And so I don't think I'll support them at all, which is a little disappointing to see an Australian manufacturer treat people the way that they did. Yeah, so that list. Points. Yeah. Yeah, Danny and I have been quite busy with a lot of killing. Alley Cat wants to know how much of Prenty Downs is fenced, and if not, how do you control movement? we've got a boundary fence between us and Windidda, and we've got a state of disrepair fence across the north between us and Carnegie Station, and we're looking at repairing that fence to the north, and the one between us and Windidda is fairly sound. We've got a few spots we need to patch back up because camels have pushed it down. And so, yeah, slowly getting there with fixing that up. We control the movement of our cattle generally by their grazing radius and making sure that we don't overstock the western side of it. And we work pretty well with our neighbours. Esther's asked, do we have any goats out at our place? No, fortunately the goats didn't come as far as this far east. So yeah, it's really good on the country because up near Geraldton and Carnarvon, the country is just denuded completely. And if they were out here, we would have a lot worse conditions.
Our employees live here.
Greg's asked how many head of cattle. We've got around 3,300 as our breeding herd. We're bringing that down. And the station is family owned. And yeah, our employees live on the station because it's 265 k's to our nearest town. Now, Rob has asked when is Ant back. He may be in March.
Yeah, he's taking a very extended...
Yeah, he was up in Norway enjoying the cold while we were getting warm. The fences are around 80 kilometres long, or 90 kilometres. Kerry's asked who musters in the cattle for trucking. We do. We use self-mustering yards. So we don't actually chase our cattle. Our cattle walk into the yards themselves every day. And then we just shut the gate to stop them getting out. Yeah, that's about it.
Does Danny choose not to wear high vis?
Yeah, Danny at the moment, Danny's really enjoying wearing the Jack Out the Back shirts from Adam. And yeah, he sometimes wears high vis, but he can do really what he wants to with his shirts. I don't enforce that.
As long as it's safe.
Yeah.
Have we still got the bees? Yes.
Do I still have my bees? Yes, I do. And Jesse brought down another nuke, so I'm going to be putting them into another another hive. So that'll be good, especially when we get rain and we get a blossom, because we'll get a whole load of honey from them. Thanks, Mike. That's really nice to hear. And Mike's asking, different Mike is asking how one can get in touch with us. We've got an Instagram, so Jack Out the Back. We've got a Facebook, Jack Out the Back, and you can message us on there. And then through our website, there's a contact us page. We're getting the website upgraded soon, just because we are having a few delays on that. Michael Murchie has said lots of properties in Western Queensland are putting in high exclusion fencing. Is it something that would work for us? We worked out how to make a camel-proof fence, and we've got a small one, and cattle and kangaroos and everything else can move in and out under it. We call it the semi-permeable membrane, and that is a 1/2-inch steel cable that has been done up with tension with a loader and a large truck, and that low hanging wire, or it's pretty taut, will stop the camels going through it. It would just cost us a lot of money to build it, and the property's down to the southern half of the state. So if we go down to the pastoral region around Kalgoorlie, and I've got to change how big I am, and I'll pop down there. So properties which are around Kalgoorlie and then down along the Nullarbor here, they have got exclusion fencing, and that was state sponsored. Up here, we don't have the same access to the funding because we don't have the same political pressure. And so it would be nice, but fences also take a lot of maintenance, and they still haven't even finished building the fence around the Kalgoorlie-Nullarbor area. And so that's millions of taxpayer money that has just gone and is rusting away. And so then there's a lack of desire to complete that sort of operation and do it elsewhere in the state. So yeah, a exclusion fence could work. Adam's asking about the night shoots on Ruse. Yeah, I've just got to get the time and some more ammo for my 223, and I'll put the pard onto that because I like using my 223 on Ruse. It's a lot sweeter. And I went to look at putting it on the 22-250, but I've got a weaver on that, so I can't put the pard onto it. The Ruse are a significant problem here. DeMarco has asked, do I have my private pilot's license? Yes, I do.
Two people asking about shirts.
The shirts, yep. Adam and I are working on that slowly. We will get there. Eric has asked, are there any issues with the Starlink in the heat? Yes, in our flat mount. And Brendan and I were joking about it on the weekend, that it's the mounting bracket that we bagged the most is the one that I actually use the most now. It is starting to overheat because it doesn't get the airflow under it. Where the Trackify unit does have a bit of airflow and it seems to perform better. But now we're on the top of the cab rather than on top of the spare tyre carrier, and so it doesn't have the same airflow. I do have another mount that I've got to put my new Starlink unit into, and we will see how that goes.
Rundown on the family farms.
What's one big purchase you'd make? Land Cruisers?
I guess mostly just upgrade our vehicles and equipment.
Put a bit more into the equipment, build a workshop, have a pit, have a hoist so I can do more regular maintenance, but just a reset on some of my vehicles rather than keeping them going.
Enclosed cabs with aircon.
Yeah, aircon cabs would be great. Because the Mitsubishi just doesn't keep going.
Rundown on the family farms, and where do we send the cattle?
Yeah, so Jazza has asked us about a rundown on the family farms and JH's channel, and yeah, we've got a farm down there as well, which my brother George and Tom are running, and we've actually done a video. Well, I've got to edit the video, but I've got some of the footage from down at the farm, down at the feedlot, and a little bit of down at the pasture. I've just got to get down to sorting and editing that video. Shooting videos are a lot easier to edit than work videos, to be honest. Yeah. Are feral cats a problem? Yes, they are a problem. And we shoot them when we can. You're in a Coma's asked, what corps? I was in signals.
Lightning towers.
Using our old windmill towers for lightning mitigation, or lightning rods. Yeah, I thought about it, and then I thought about the cost. It's cheaper to replace than putting in the required, calculated earth stakes and the copper lines. So, I've just run with replace them as we go. The Land Cruiser repairs, you'd have to ask George. I think he was in the chat earlier, but he's on holiday up on the other side of the country where this is happening. So he's, he won't be able to tell us how that's going. But it's going to be a little while to get that girl back up and running. Do I have a trade? No, my only formal qualifications are quite limited. I went to go do my heavy diesel mechanic, but I was too much in the technical side of things. Is there a chemical that is offensive to the camel that you could spread around your water holes to keep the camels away? Now, shark repellent is made from, and they're trying to make a synthetic version of the odour of a rotting great white shark, and that keeps other sharks away. Now, the camels don't seem to care about the smell of rotting camels, because today, at one water point where I had left some camels, Danny and I pulled up this morning, we shot 4 camels, and then 3 hours later when we came back, there were more camels, and the live camels were actually in amongst the dead camels to the point where it was almost a zombie moment that the camel popped up and it was a surprise. Michael's asking, how do you do with the isolation and who generally lives on station? It's us, and the isolation does get to you. Yeah. It's nice to get away.
And have people...
and having visitors, yeah. Noisy Voyeur has asked, have you thought about a standing bipod when shooting for stability? Yes. Now, most people have been saying, grab a bipod, tripod, something, and it is another bit of kit to carry around. However, I've gotten one. I've ordered one from Magnum Sports, and it's a bog pod death grip, and they're on special at the moment for 299 Australian dollars. So I'll be able to have a crack with that at some stage.
Time to start wrapping.
Yeah, so Mupdog was saying a feral cat versus a 308. Yeah, I've also done it where we've both shot the same cat front and back with a 270 and 308, and there's not much left. But also the semi-auto 22 Magnum's good on cats, but most of the time I'm using my 223. And Lee has said, does the Starlink get affected by the heat? Even the house unit is getting affected. I've been noticing that our signal quality has been dropping as we've been doing this live. Yeah.
It's hard not to.
Yeah, it's hard for things not to have issues with heat out here. Like even our optics, we do have a limit on our night scope, like the day-night scope from PARD. So far that's been performing really well, but even just sitting in the car, it got quite warm, but it does still operate. I'd have to get some clarification on burrows, because we've got horses, and I shot 2 donkeys on Saturday. The whistling intro, so I've got the whistling intro and I've got the metal intro, so people can sometimes associate if an episode's going to have shooting in it, it's got the metal intro, and if it's just normal station and comedy, there's going to be the whistling intro.
We were wondering about that, Mike and Sam.
People wanting to have the episodes for order. Yeah.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, I'd have to go back through everything.
It's a lot of work. Just try looking at dates, folks.
Yeah, sort it by date. It's a bit challenging. I've got to go through and do a whole load of management on our videos and everything. And Willie Billy's asked, how many cows do you think you've got? And I like that being put that way, because it's quite often you ask a farmer how many cows they've got and they can tell you exactly how many, but if you ask a pastoralist, they say, about this many. Because you're never 100% certain on the numbers. How many babies can camels have? They will have one. Rarely. Rarely do they have twins. But we've got a lot of babies. Like it's been a lot of young ones that we've shot recently.
Yeah, but it's been a good season, but it's leading into a hard summer. So they had a really good breeding season.
Yeah, and that's why, because we've had such a good 2 years of breeding, we need to shoot them now. And like this heat wave now is the opportunity for pastoralists, the state, and everyone to take out the camels and get the numbers down, because they're going to be concentrated and they're not very well spread out. So doing some targeted shooting in the heat. Now, the state government shooters will not work over 42 degrees Celsius. Yeah, and we've had it before where they said, oh no, it's too hot to go shooting, and we were killing 600 odd a day from the ground. So yeah, private is the way to, you know, get things done effectively. So yeah, today was really to sort of just cap off on the you know, carnage that we've been going through with the camels recently, and the ferals. And Danny and I probably have got one more day of shooting left before we get all of this rain coming in, because it's meant to be coming in on Tuesday evening or Wednesday afternoon. So we will see how we go, because once we get that rain, and particularly because can't be a weatherman, it's going to be on our western side, it could actually still suck camels in across the property. So we're just going to have more animals spread out that we have to kill. But that's the work. Do I take a holiday? Yeah, every now and then. We had a couple of weeks off during Christmas, for the girls to go down and do swimming lessons in Esperance. But I still work when I'm down there. Can you eat horse and donkey meat? Yes, but I wouldn't eat it now. It's they're droughted. They're unhappy. How many camels do we shoot a day? Well, today was 180 something. I think in the video I only said 165, but then we added it up on the tally and it was more.
182.
182. So yeah.
When you shoot the big bulls, do the young ones get a look in? No, we kill them too.
Shooting big bulls and the young ones and populations go. Well, what you end up with is a normal camel mob, and there'll be one bull and a couple of young little fellas, like quite young, and then you have bachelor mobs, and they will have scars, and there'll be an old one in there who's been taken out by a young fella. But yeah, you'll find those, and there'll be like 3 or 4, maybe 5 of those boys, and you go take them out as well. You kill everything. My favourite projectile for the 308. Look, 165 grain projectile, usually a Sierra, is quite good, but that's because you're looking at a very good ballistic coefficient. But I just use our factory ammo now. I don't reload anymore. It's only our Wildcat stuff, and I miss reloading, but I'm not set up for it up here at the station. Why no working dogs? Because we've got baits everywhere, and I don't want to lose another dog, and it's just a little bit calmer to run them. Run them without the dogs. The cost of the ammo we touched on earlier, it was between $1.45 and $1.65 per shot. So the 223 and 308 are similar to run. Do we believe that we are making a noticeable dent in the numbers? We have noticed more the landscape here rather than the numbers. So by persistently shooting them and being regular with shooting them, the countryside's better. Now, we run solar rather than windmills. We have the yards controlled, so it slows down the camels from having access to it, and we haven't had to cart water for 3 or 4 years here. Whereas at this station, they used to cart water for 3 months of the year. And that we think that's because we run solar, and because we've got the yards controlled and because we shoot everything that isn't productive. Is it only you or all the farmers shooting as much as they can? A lot of the guys do. So some of the other stations who own, the guys own the stations, they do a lot of shooting. But when it's the guys who are managing the properties for someone else, sometimes the time isn't allocated to them going and shooting. Do we have Hornady ammo in Australia? Yes, and I run that in my 357. Some more motorbike action. Yeah, I've only moved away from the ADI because we bought a few thousand of PMC. We buy in bulk, so we get the better prices, and it comes down to what we have at the day.
Brett hit it on the head. Of course, we keep records.
And Brett, yeah, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and that goes back to our camel management video a while ago with Ant, and yeah, we have an Excel spreadsheet here that we update regularly, and we're going through the process of updating it, and we're just going to run back through our list of kills, which is stored on my phone. We also tag the location so we can get ideas of influxes. So the area of the station where Danny and I have been working today is on the edge of this lake. So you got Lake Wells down here, or if I move this up, Lake Wells, and what happens is camels come in from the desert, they hit here and they find the exploration tracks, and they come up to a water point called Connections, and they wait there and we shoot them. And yeah, then you also get a reasonable amount coming through here from midnight up towards Well Springs, because this is a natural corridor for the animals between the two lakes. And then you've got across the lake here, they'll use the causeway to get across, and they'll find the springs. And then we shot some camels this morning down near the spring, which is here, which is a natural spring, and so the camels can smell the water, and the spring feeds into the salt lake. So Robbie's asked, what GoPros or cameras am I using? I have shifted over to using DJI cameras, or a DJI camera, and it's got a lot better audio on it naturally. I've been not using my external microphone while shooting, and then for the video editing I use DaVinci Resolve, and I paid for the license, which allowed me to use the full processing capacity of my computer. Have I used the 223 on camels? Yes, I've dropped somewhere around 700 or 800 camels with the 223, if not more. Because the first 700 rounds I put through my 223, I did it with iron sights because it was a mini Morser, and a little bit of nostalgia there. Check out Mark 1 development. I will have a look. How's the shoulder after the shooting, the 308? Yeah, it gets a little bit sore. But I got sent a enhanced recoil reducer that I want to put onto the MPR, and that came from the guys up at the Territory. So that's Fishing and Outdoor World in Darwin. So thank you very much, Grant, for that. Glenn asked, have you applied for a Cat C? Yes, I've got one, but that's only for rim fires here in WA. And we're not allowed semi-auto centre fires. Yep, Brett, I think you tried to call me just as we're starting this as well. So I've just got to go through that and have a look. Using a drone, I've got a DJI. And they are really frustrating to try and manage the drone and shooting. If not, someone has to be dedicated to flying the drone while we're shooting. The Canadian 8, I think Jasmine has answered that. about the camels just sitting there trying to learn how to get into the water point. Yeah, and that makes it really good easy to manage them. And then if you've got some inside, you shoot everyone outside, and then you get the ones inside. And you try to do that quietly, but recently I've just been using the 308. Otherwise, you just use the 22 Magnum. Inside the yards, it is actually effective, and it's quiet. Sean has asked about military background. Yep, Australian Army Reserves Signals Corps. And Grace Monkey has asked, do I use a blast deflector on the NPR? And yes, I do. I run the... blast deflector. Yeah, I do. And that makes it nicer for if I'm shooting across the vehicle, and also for the other shooter. A lot of the mining companies won't associate themselves with anything like shooting. Yeah, and we don't have any mining on Prenti, and so yeah, that's yeah, a pro and a con. They have done a couple of feral controls down on some of the properties around Laverton, but the contractor that they used for that wasn't very effective because he was double dipping. He was getting the pet meat and selling that, but also getting the feral control. Yeah. Getting the feral control contract. Favourite vehicle on the station? Postie bike or Jumbo. Jumbo's great.
Postie bike because it's just the sheer convenience. Jack calls the Postie the mobility scooter.
Yeah, the Postie bike is a mobility scooter. Yeah. And we have toyed around with a couple of different ideas. Graham Lau, he's a member on the channel, and he's reached out to us. We're going to be trying out a side-by-side that his company is importing and producing, mainly down at the farm. And people have asked us about why don't you use a side-by-side for shooting up here. One of the main things is they do get damaged, and one of my mates, he brought one up for shooting up here, and they wrote it off in the first hour and a half. So that was costly for them. Yeah, I'm trying to work out. At Gaming, it says, what does the station and Australia?
Yeah, it's not really.
Yeah.
Okay, just leave him with me, and off you go. Let's go.
Yeah, that sort of comes up to Camel Carnage. But if you guys give us a 15-minute break. Sorry, Jimmy, have you done a video with Jumbo?
No.
I've got no video with Jumbo. I've got some archive stuff that we're not allowed to show. But yeah, we will break out Jumbo at some point. It's great, but I've got a bit of a water pump problem at the moment, which I've just got to identify further and track down a water pump for a 1983 Nissan Patrol, the 24-volt version. Yeah, I'll hunt down for that. Yes, it is certainly beer o'clock, but if you give us a now 15-minute break, we'll be putting up a video from, well, part 2 from Saturday, which is a little bit more Camel Carnage. So, thank you very much for joining us on a chat, and thank you so much to all of our members. You help us keep going. And
do you want to get Chip?
Yeah, can you get Chip?
I'll get Chip.
Jasmine's going to go get Chip, the puppy. Am I still using Rumble? Sometimes my videos aren't going across to Rumble, and I've found that Rumble, I've been able to start getting a lot more of my content on YouTube and not having to censor it. And interestingly, I've been banned from, or blocked from TikTok because my footage is too graphic. And I'd only started a TikTok because people were using some of my footage on there with some of my now becoming famous catchphrases. Thanks, Adam. To get likes and stuff. And Jazza, I think that would be a really good shirt to get.
Okay.
So yeah.
But yeah, here you go.
Alright, so just to show everyone off the mighty pup
The livestock.
before we go, this is the new Prenti stud. His name is Chip, and he is a dachshund, or dachshund. So yeah.
Oh, baby.
Um,
This is upside down.
yeah, we're gonna go and set this video to go live in a few minutes for you guys to enjoy.
Don't forget to like.
And don't forget to like, and if you aren't subscribed and you're watching this, please subscribe. You'll get notified when we do anything live. And we are going to investigate some of our other live streaming options, and it might not all be through YouTube. So, thanks everyone, and I will see you on the typing chat. And yeah, Eric's saying put a watermark on your gear. Yeah, I don't really like watermarking my stuff, but we could do. Alright. Say goodbye, Chip.
Mum, are there